It's been week in, week out of revelations. Political horse trading for some politicians, while some others, it's great to have you join us. This is Political Spectrum coming to you live from Uyo, the state's capital, and I remain your host, Onwese Ehinoma Olusegun. As always, our programs are about everyday political and economic developments in Nigeria and policy actions of government, creating the immediate reactions by citizens, thereby making government more transparent, accountable to its people. But first, on President Tinubu's app today is October 30th, Monday, 2023, and it marks exactly 155 days of President Bola Tinubu in the armed forces. Now let's begin with a statement. Only Obasanjo comes close to a nationalist in Nigeria. That statement is credited to Amechi, the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi. Now, he made this statement a few days ago that former President Olusegun Obasanjo is the only Nigerian leader who can be referred to as nationalist in the country. The former Rivers State governor, who was guesting on the Nigerian condition, said the event was held at the National Institute of International Affairs, NIIA, in Lagos. Now, the former governor who spoke on Nigeria's quest for nationhood before and after independence noted that Nigerians have not had a national leader since independence. Amechi lamented that the country, in spite of its diverse ethnic groups, has not produced national leaders like Mahatma Gandhi of India and Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. Now, the former minister, however, said Obasanjo, whom he disagreed with on national policies and politics in some cases, is the closest to him to a national leader. He added, "We are our own problems in this country. They want to believe and who they want to believe and not to believe. Our case seems hopeless. In student unionism at the University of Port Harcourt, with all humility, I left the university in 1987 and have never worked anywhere outside politics." Continues, and I quote, "I became a speaker at 34. I became a governor at 42. I became a minister at 50. The elites will only bring up issues that they want to be tackled. Look at the issue of resource control that my Southside people advocated for. But when we got there and had a president from the region, did we achieve the resource control agenda?" The answer is left for you to answer. Now, Amechi, who also reflected on the regime of the immediate past President Muhammadu Buhari, in which he served as minister, said he would only speak on the Ministry of Transportation. Justice Mohammed, who spent 47 years in active judicial service, bowed out of the Apex Court bench on Friday, having clocked the 70 years mandatory retirement age. Now, he used the opportunity of a valedictory session that was organized in his honor by the Supreme Court to address what he observed as rots in the judiciary that have continued to affect the justice delivery system in the country. Now, through the years, I'm quoting him now, "Through the years, I rose to become the second most senior justice of the country's Apex Court and deputy chairperson of the National Judicial Council. Considering the number of years I have spent in judicial services and the position I have attained by the grace of the Almighty, I feel obligated to continue the struggle for reforms for a better judiciary and will be leaning on the earlier submissions of those who had exited before me." Now, Justice Mohammed stated before he descended on the CJN, he maintained that the judiciary are presently structured, gave so much power to the CJN, who he said usually takes decisions without consulting other justices, and that was worrisome. Now, as presently structured, the CJN is chairman of the NJC, which oversees both the appointments and the discipline of judges. He is equally chair of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, FJSC, the National Judicial Institute, NJI, the Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee, LPPC, that appoints senior advocates of Nigeria. There you go. Now, in my considered opinion, the oversight functions of those bodies should not rest on just one individual alone. A person with absolute powers, it is said, corrupts easily and absolutely. It doesn't end there. It continues. As chair of NJC, FJSC, NJI, and LPPC, appointments as council boards and commitment members are at his pleasure, at his behest, at his exclusive prerogative. He neither confers with fellow justices nor seek their counsel or impute on any matter related to these bodies. He has both the final and the only say. The CJN has powers to appoint 80% of the members of the council and 60% of the members of the FJSC. The same applies to the NJI and LPPC. He continues, and I quote, such enormous powers are effortlessly abused. This needs to change. Continued denial of the existence of this threatening anomaly weakens effective judicial oversight in the country, he added. Now, on the current composition of the bench of the Apex Court, Justice Mohammed alleged that the refusal to fill the vacant slots of Southeast on the Apex Court bench was deliberate. Now, I'm going to take this part and then I will just halt and we'll play the video. Now, he blamed it on absolute powers vested on the office of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Those are grave allegations. Now, he further stressed that with his retirement, the North Central Zone, which he represented, will no longer have a justice on the Supreme Court bench. He says, and I quote, "My Lord, Honorable Justice Ejembi Eko, JSC, who also represented the zone, retired on the 23rd of May, 2022. Take note. It has been a year and 5 months now. There has not been any replacement." He continues, "With the passing of my Lord, Honorable Justice Chima Santos Nweze," we all knew when Santos Nweze was announced that he passed on the 29th July 2023, which is some few months ago, the Southeast no longer has any present at the Supreme Court. My Lord, Honorable Justice Sylvester Nwale Nguta, JSV, died on the 7th of March 2021. There has not been any appointment in his seat for the Southeast. As it stands, only 4 geopolitical zones, the Southwest, the South-South, the Northwest, and the Northeast, are represented in the Supreme Court, while the South-South and the Northeast have 2 7 justices. The Northwest, the Southwest are fully represented with 3 each. Now, appropriate steps could have been taken since to fill the outstanding vacancies in the Apex Court. Why have these steps not been timelessly taken? It is evident that the decisions not to fill the vacancies in the court is deliberate. It is also about the absolute powers vested in the office of the CJN and the responsible exercise of same, the retired jurist added. All right, let's take a listen to the next video that will be showing Justice Datijo in his retirement speech.
In the same vein, the Quran, Surah Ra'd, provides in 1338.
It was my view that valedictory sessions only provide honorees the platforms to tell their stories and, informed by experience in the course of service, make suggestions as to how to improve the institutions they had served. I was, however, unable to appreciate the extent to which previous suggestions had been exploited to effect the desired reforms. Members of my family and close friends prevailed upon me to reconsider my position. They insisted that it is defeatist to allow failure in utilizing suggestions proffered at previous occasions to deter subsequent contributions. The quest for institutional improvement, particularly in the judiciary, we insisted, must rather be intensified to avoid hastening the demise of our society. A society, they significantly reason, rots too easily when institutional defects are ignored. I capitulated, and thus the unfolding events today. I am also here to say goodbye particularly to the attendees of today's event, the public, and indeed the country at large, for giving me the privilege and honor of serving the judiciary for 47 years. The valedictory, again, is a thanksgiving exercise for the good health one enjoyed in the course of service. Glory be to the Almighty Allah, the Lord of the universe. Because I would eventually write a book to tell my story, including the experience gathered while serving in the judiciary, it is incumbent for me to be very brief in my address this morning. Appreciable efforts have been made by earlier speakers in telling you who I am. May it please you to hear it from the horse's mouth. I was born and bred in Lima, a ward in Mina, now the capital of Niger State. Then, in 1953, a relatively small and quiet provincial headquarters. I was named after my paternal grandfather, known and called Musa Kumuria. Adamu, my paternal great-grandfather, traded in cattle and kola nuts between Kumuria, a village in present-day Kano State, and Ogomosho in Oyo State and beyond. He would convey cattle southwards and kola nuts back to the north. They traveled on foot and in groups in those days, making stopovers at Bakani and Durban, both places along the route towards Mocha and in between Kwantagora and Bida respectively. Musa Kumuria's mother, Hafsatu, was Adamu's third and youngest wife. Before Musa's birth, her earlier children had died serially. On conceiving and determined not to lose Musa, Hafsatu insisted that she accompanied her husband on his trade surgeons. At Durban, on one of such occasions, Adamu fell ill and died. Hafsatu, rather than travel back to Kumuria, decided to settle at Durban with young Musa, whom she feared, like his deceased siblings, would also die if they went back home to Kumuria. Hafsatu remarried subsequently and had a daughter, Gogo Saidat, Kumuria's uterine sister. Not quite long, she lost her second husband. Incessant pressure from Musa's uncles back in Kumuria. The same applies to NGI and LPPC. Such enormous powers are effortlessly abused. I repeat, such enormous powers are effortlessly abused. This needs to change. Continued denial of the existence of this threatening anomaly weakened the Lagos State Division of the Court of Appeal, and I knew his attitude towards the judiciary. I don't think he would be flippant to say that he's doing this and to recline from doing that. I'm very, very optimistic that that amount of money will be released to the judiciary as well. Now, notwithstanding the phenomenal increases in the sums appropriated and released to the judiciary, justices and officers' welfare and the quality of service of the judiciary that the judiciary rendered have continued to decline. There is a terrible decline in the services and the welfare of justices and officers of the institution. I should know, and I know, and I'm saying it as I know that. It means...
All right, that was Justice Mohammed Dachido pouring out his mind. He started from his family background, talked about the number of years he has spent in the judiciary, and now he's 70, was 70 on Friday, and that was some kind of retirement celebration that was put for him. But he used that opportunity to air out his mind. No better time. Because, you know, in Nigeria, they often say that when you are in a system, it's very hard for you to discuss, you know, the ills within that system. But hey, here's a man going out, and he's used that platform, you know, to air out some of the major issues that have made the judiciary, especially at the apex Supreme Court level, accentuated in what he describes as a deplorable state. Now, let me quickly take another quote from him. Mohammed said, and I quote, "To ensure justice and transparency in the presidential appeals from the lower court, all geopolitical zones are required to participate in the hearing." Of course, you all know that he was referring to the last Supreme Court appeal judgment. Now, he continues, and I quote, "It is therefore dangerous for democracy and equity for two entire regions to be left out in the decision that will affect the generality of Nigerians." This is not what our laws envisage, although it can be posited that no one expected the sudden passing of Honorable Justice Nweze JSC, yet it has been 2 years and 7 months since previous justice from Southeast died and no appointment was made. He noted that it was owing to the allegations of corruptions and perversion, or do I say travesty of justice, that informed President Muhammadu Buhari's decision to order the invasion of homes and arrest of some judges in 2016. It's still very fresh in our memories. And there was a huge outcry from Nigerians. Now, in 2019, the government accosted, arrested, and arraigned the incumbent Chief Justice before the Code of Conduct Tribunal for alleged underhand conduct. With his retirement apparently negotiated, he was eventually left off the hook. We all know who we're talking about. In 2022, a letter signed by all other justices of the Supreme Court, including the current Chief Justice, the aggrieved protested against the shabby treatment meted to them by the head of court and the chief registrar. In the event, His Lordship Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed disengaged ostensibly on the grounds of ill health. My lords, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, it is obvious that the judiciary I am exiting from is far from the one I voluntarily joined and desire to serve and be identified with. The institution has become something else, Justice Mohammed lamented. Meanwhile, earlier in the ceremony, the CJN, in his speech, paid glowing tribute to the retiring jurist, who he described as a quintessential judicial icon with dazzling qualities and alluring stature. His Lordship is one judicial officer that could be blunt, even to a fault, and is never known to be afraid to say things the way they are, and also never shies away from calling a spade by its name, irrespective of whose ox is God, the CGM stated. He decried that the Justice Mohammed's exit the apex court bench has further depleted to 10. Now, anybody who's following what I'm saying would think if Justice Dajito Muhammad had spoken first, will Justice Ariwala still be pouring encomiums and praises at him? Those are questions left to be answered. Let's take the remaining part of the video. It's a very short clip where Dajito himself was seen, you know, taking these things headlong, in spite of the fact that he was in front of the members of the Supreme Court.
I'm predicting, a terrible decline in the services and the welfare of justices and officers of the institution. I should know, and I know, and I'm saying it as I know them. It may interest one to know that, and this is another ridiculous thing, that the Chief Registrar of the Supreme Court earns more than the justices of the court. It's not something of today. This anomaly has been in existence all these years. I was a Chief Registrar in 1986. I knew what salary I do vis-a-vis what the judges of the High Court that I serve were taking. Supreme Court is the apex court. And yet, the chief registrar of this court earns much more than I do, earns much more than we all do. And nobody talks. Nobody talks.
Specific statements. Now, despite 165 billion allocation, Nigerian judges continue to suffer under Kayode Ariwola's leadership. So he also claimed in that long video of speech. Now, the same retired justice seriously lamented the hardship that Nigerian judges face under the leadership of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kayode Ariwola, leading to their poor service delivery. Now, despite 160 billion allocation from the Bola Tinubu administration, now Justice Davido wondered what the judiciary does with its increasing sum of allocations from the federal government every year. He said, and I quote, "It is instructive to inquire what the judiciary also does with its allocations, who is responsible for the expenditure, and unrelenting searchlight needs to be beamed." In 2018 appropriation bill submitted to the National Assembly, the president allocated 100, that's an extra 30, to the judiciary. Now the legislature increased it to 110 the same year. Now that 10 billion above the 100 billion appropriated for the 2017 fiscal year. Now at the end of Buhari's tenure in May 2023, judicial allocation had increased to 130, that's an extra 20. That is an increase from 70 to 100 to 110 and to 130 billion in 8 years. Now, the present government has allocated an additional sum of 35 billion naira to the judiciary for the current financial year, making the amount of money accessible by the judiciary to 165 billion naira. Now, more than 85% of the amount appropriated by the Ninth Assembly has so far been released to the judiciary. It envisaged that the additional 35 billion naira will equally be released by the present government. Now, it says, and I quote, "It may interest one to know that the chief registrar of the Supreme Court earns more than the justices. While she earns 1.2 million per month, justices take home only a paltry sum of 751,000 naira a month." You heard him say all that. Now, all these and more, we will have our usual Monday panelist to throw more light on the issues. We are basically going to be talking about politicians, that the system has some kind of systemic corruption, you know, that is almost perfected. So we'll go on a short break briefly, then we'll come back and just start off the conversation almost immediately. Stay tuned. Join us again.
And if you remember, and if you remember the kind of tongue lashing that the appeal court gave to the lawyers of Atiku and Obi and even APM, it was quite embarrassing. They said they don't know anything. It's unfortunate that they were hired to do the case and all of this kind of stuff. But you look at INEC that own up that they had a glitch, they have not been able to define till now, and they went against their promise. Not just that, promise made at the international community.
No politician can say that he has not stolen. No politician has come out to say he has not stolen. React to that.
First of all, Amechi was not. You fast forward now to this last outing, yeah, where he made that very statement, and some people are saying to yourself, that is his own style of speaking, but he himself has not even lived up to my own personal expectation. Why? Having been the candidate, one of the aspirants, presidential aspirants in APC, and what transpired during the elections, their primaries, he did not go to court. I had expected that Amechi would have been the one to have even taken the winner. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to court, because the issues that Labour Party and particularly Atiku took on, having to do with the qualification, had always been in public domain, and he is aware that that matter was never resolved. So for him to have come second, and then he did not have the guts to go to court, like it happened here in Akwa Ibom State, under the PDP, Pastor Moino was serving in the exco with Mr. Kanokun as colleagues in the Akwa Ibom State exco. And when Moino emerged, Kanokun went to court to say that Moino has issues with the certificate. That matter was addressed, but the last we got was that maybe even Supreme Court had even going to reopen it because of one thing led to another, but all the same. What I'm trying to say is that it's within the party that people should sanitize themselves. But if you know that your colleagues in the party, the who is who in the party, they have question marks all over, and you don't do something, and you are alleging that citizens are docile, are gullible, they are not responsive enough, they are the ones who have taken up arms within the system. I was disappointed by Ahmed Tinubu, and so that is not a plus for him, but give it to him. He has his own style. What he has said is a conversation starter, because going forward, we are no longer the same people. We must do things differently, because we cannot allow the country or 200 million people.
Interesting and quite instructive. Still on Amechi, still to respond on the allegations by the former Director General of the NPA under his watch, that's Hadiza, that there were too many lies. I don't know whether he was talking about the book or some of the interviews that she took, but of course that one also wrote a book, Stepping on Toes, which I was lucky enough to have a glance of a few of the contents of the book. But as soon as I saw that it was a report on accusations of politicians within their own circle in the APC, I became a little bit discouraged, because I believe internal issues can be resolved and must not get to the level where you now have to write in a book for people to read. Now, she said, Amechi said that a lot of the things she had said were lies, and that she said she was not indicted, but Amechi said he has proof that he will show that she was indicted. You know, so there's been back and forth that the lady would sign off on humongous amounts that by law she had no right to sign off. And then there's been back and forth, yet again exposing some level of corruption, you know, within that administration. I want you to also react to that.
One thing you also, or maybe another thing you have to note about Amechi is that sometimes it's difficult for you to nail him. If you go for a battle, maybe the physical battle, maybe you can, but if he's speaking on the points of fact, I choose against Amechi.
Okay, embarrass him more than once.
Yes, that's why that close. You'll be able to deal with the person, even though if he also wants to deal with you, he will deal with you. Ask to pray this simple prayer. Oh God, do unto me what I have been doing to Nigeria. Or at the level of lower level, I don't know how many can say, Father in heaven, God Almighty, do unto me as I've been doing to my constituents. They can't pray that prayer. Very few will pray that prayer. So, but on the issue of the NPA, the angle that the chairman, that lady came from, is so powerful, and for Amechi to have survived to get her out shows that Amechi was on ground, and people knew that this one you can't do it. So I would rather believe Amechi than the lady. And like Amechi himself, as he was part of the Buhari administration, he would not want to speak about it. It's his choice. But I'm believing that someday, what has come to be known as corruption in its industrial scale will be investigated. And the names and the acts of those involved will be such that the world, the Guinness Book of Records, World Records, will definitely have a lot to capture.
Okay, while you are going on,
I do see
while you are going on,
that lady.
Conrad, while you are going on, let me quickly add this. He also said something that disturbed me personally. And he said that no matter what happens, Nigerians do nothing. He used some analogies that I don't want to bring on this show because, you know, it was an expose. And you will see a man for the first time in a long time being sincere because he has no stake in politics. He says even if certain people were gathered and shot, there will just be noise, probably noise on social media, and Nigerians will do nothing. He said that. Then he also said that Adiza was the one who had offended him, and that in the document he had or that is portraying, a lot of prominent Nigerians were also part of it. But he will stay silent on mentioning the names of those prominent Nigerians because, according to him, they have not done anything to him. So here is the moral burden of leaders. Would you say that you will conceal corruption because the people perpetrating it, according to you, have not offended you? Or is it just that that is the way that circle seems to operate until someone steps on your toes before you expose some kind of corruption activities? All these things are intriguing and mind-boggling. What do you think?
I said earlier that Amaechi's statement is a conversation starter. It has kicked off. It's going to have a domino effect. It should be commended. Actually, it should be commended for even starting this conversation. Remember, the former First Lady, immediate past First Lady, Aisha Buhari, said at a public function live that her husband has been hijacked by two people and that Nigerian men should rise up and deliver Nigeria. Even the husband talked down on her and said she belongs to the other room, which has become a kind of
cliche,
a slogan. So, a cliche, yes. Amaechi saying this shows that we, even not just citizens, should be interested. Remember, citizens reacted when we had the SARS protests, not been told. There are corpses, which the Lagos state government, a late memo showed that corpses of SARS victims